we're going to do a video. Will you be good? Yes, you promise? No, you don't promise? Can you say hi? Wave hi to everyone. You're going to give me tons of views. I know that. You're going to be my key to going viral, right? She was talking a ton earlier, but now you guys are making her kind of shy. Okay, shall we start our Bible study? Yeah, okay. Let's get the Bible. Let's drink some coffee. Coffee's good. Revelation chapter 18. Revelation 18 is it's similar but different from chapter 17. And I think one of the most important things is really contrasting the two so we can understand all what's going on, right? Okay. So in chapter 18, it says, "After these things I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was illuminated with his glory." Once again, that word another in the Greek is allos. We have allos and heteros are Greek words for another. And it's very helpful knowing these things when we're studying the Bible. If you have Blue Letter Bible or there's other things out there that can show you the Greek words, it's really simple with Blue Letter Bible. Download the Blue Letter Bible app or go to the website. I even made a video a while back on how to use these. But click on the verse, click on interlinear, and then just scroll down and see what's the word. Allos, it very distinctly, okay, it's very specific. It's another of the same kind. Heteros means another of a different kind. And so as we read the Bible, that word another, like it'll actually help us understand, are we talking about another of the same? Why does that matter? Well, because again, this angel has the earth illuminating with his glory. Is it talking about Jesus? And many interpreters throughout history have interpreted some of the angels in Revelation to be Jesus. And I think they're angels. And one big reason is because it says another of the same kind. Well, I saw one angel, here's another angel. And angels have a lot of glory. I mean, the idea is that, angels are pretty magnificent creatures. And so we shouldn't be surprised that they have the heavenly robes on, that they have great power and great glory, similar to Jesus, but also very different from Jesus in that none of the angels ever allow themselves to be worshipped. They always freak out when anyone tries to worship them. And so another. And he cried mightily with a loud voice, "Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become a dwelling place of demons, a prison for every foul spirit, and a cage for every unclean and hated bird." Now, Babylon is fallen, you're going to see in Jeremiah chapter 50, chapter 51. Actually, I should save that. It's coming in a second here. And verse 4 is a better parallel for my Jeremiah verses. But chapter 14, verse 8, we see the same thing. Babylon is fallen. And so just as chapter 14 was a parenthetical chapter, chapter 18 is a parenthetical chapter, i.e., John is seeing heavenly stuff. It doesn't progress our earthly timeline. Let's keep reading forward, and then hopefully if I get enough done today, there's a lot in this chapter, we can contrast the two. Bye, Hannah. So, verse 3, "All the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The kings of the earth are committing fornication with her." No turning the lights off, you stinker. Can you go turn the light back on? "And so, and have become rich through the abundance of her luxury. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, 'Come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins, and lest you receive her plagues.'" Give me 1 second. Come here, Sneaky. I'm chasing you. They can hear, but they can't see. Run for your life. Okay. We're good now. Anyway, so it says, "Come out of her." So Jeremiah 50 verses 8 and 9, Jeremiah 51 verse 6, we see the same exact words, "Come out of Babylon, come out of Babylon." we see righteous Lot, which is a weird way to think of Lot, but that's what the New Testament calls him. Peter calls him righteous. Lot was removed from Sodom. 1 Thessalonians 5:9, Romans 5:9, that the righteous are not going to suffer God's wrath. And so just like in Sodom and Gomorrah, he calls the righteous out. Get out of Babylon. You don't want to be there because I don't want to punish the righteous with the wicked. Similarly to the idea that God will take the righteous, he'll take his children out of the earth before he pours out his wrath upon the whole earth. For her sins have reached to heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. Render to her just as she's rendered to you, and repay her double according to her works. In the cup which she has mixed, mix double for her. In the measure that she gloried herself and lived luxuriously, in the same measure give her torment and sorrow. For she says in her heart, I sit as a queen, and I am no widow, and will not see sorrow. So if you go all the way back to Revelation chapter 3, all the way back, it's not that far back, you'll see where it says in verse 17, because you say, I am rich, I become wealthy, I have no need of anything, but you do not realize you're wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and naked. There's an irony that some churches propose that health and wealth are obviously the signs of God's blessings. Now, God likes to provide health and wealth provisions for his kids. Which parent of you does not want to give good gifts to your kids? Some of us couldn't afford to give the things to our kids we wish we could have given to them, but we wanted to. Parents want to bless their children. But this idea that wealth is a sign of blessing, that's the irony, is that in the Bible, Jesus says it's easier to get a camel through the eye of a needle than a rich man into heaven. And we see in Revelation this idea that people are boasting in their riches. This must mean we've got it made. And the warning is no, you're getting a false sense of security because of your riches. And so again, there's warnings in the book of Revelation that would be important for lots of churches today to take heed in the end times we're living in. These are end times warnings, and if we look at the day and age we live, these things should be super applicable to us. And so it says, therefore her plagues will come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she will be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord who judges her. Now, a lot of stuff coming up between verses 9 and 20. And we could try and read it really quick and go through it. But basically, here's some contrast, is that in chapter 17, we're looking at the religious system in the end times, the one world religion, the bringing everyone together and having this united ecumenical church. And in chapter 18, we're looking at the governmental system of Babylon, the literal city of Babylon, and we're looking at the political side of things. Chapter 17, the religious system will fall at that 3.5 year mark. It's when the Antichrist decides, I'm going to be worshipped as God, that the religious system ends. In chapter 17, we saw no mourning. The people on the earth who, because there's really only two groups at this point. Those who are like, yeah, we don't even need religion. We're just going to follow this guy we've been following the whole time and worship him. The religious leaders, who knows who they will be? I'm not going to say the Pope or this, but these are possibilities, right? These leaders who thought, well, wait a minute, I thought we were doing stuff. Nope, they're going to be kicked out, and it says no one's going to mourn. But when the city and the wealth and the riches, when that falls, everyone's going to mourn. It says in chapter 17, it is the Antichrist, the beast, he is the one who puts an end to the woman, to Babylon, the religious system. And that's at the midpoint of the tribulation. It is Jesus Christ who will put an end to Babylon, the city. and there'll be great mourning. Again, so there's some contrast between these two Babylons in chapter 17 and chapter 18. And so as you look, you start understanding there's two things being talked of here with that title of Babylon. And so, how are we doing on time? I don't even pay attention. The other day we did like 20 minutes and I was shocked. I didn't realize time just flies when you're having fun. If I click something, I think I can figure out what time it is. We got a little bit of time. Let's see if we can plow through a little bit more of this. It says, the kings of the earth who committed fornication and lived luxuriously with her will weep and lament for her when they see the smoke of and her burning, standing at a distance for fear of her torment, saying, alas, alas, the great city of Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour your judgment has come. So, my question is are these the kings that are going to be at the battle of Armageddon? And so there's the idea is that there's going to be a battle of Armageddon. The kings are going to gather. They're going to be at a distance. And if you set off a nuke high enough, I'm not expecting a nuke, but it's just for our learning purposes, you can see it from a great distance away. And I think the idea is that when Babylon falls, all these kings are going to be able to see. One other thing that's quite fascinating is that if we're looking at Mad Max in the end times, right? If that part of a theory is true, that, you know, with all the crazy destruction around the earth, if we lose telecommunications and we lose all these things at the very, very end, that we literally have people on horses, that we literally have, and we talked about this back in chapter 16, how if the river Euphrates is stopping an army from crossing over it, it just makes me think they must be lacking in some technology. What's also fascinating is that why the Fertile Crescent was so important. Why Israel has always been important is because for anyone from Europe to attack Africa by land, they'd march through Israel. Well, even from the Middle East, there's those deserts that you'd have to cross. I guess you guys would be like this, but there's deserts. And the way you would get there, and the way that Abraham left Ur of the Chaldees and headed into Canaan, he marched north to Haran, and then he came down. What you do is you march north up the Euphrates River, following the Euphrates River and having it as a water source until you can march down and cross. So it is interesting to see that these kings could have came out of Babylon up the Euphrates. They would be following the traditional path that all ancient kings would follow as they would go into the land of Israel. And so here's the crossing over of the Euphrates River back in chapter 16. And at the point where the battle is going to be gathered there in the Jezreel Valley, the Ezralon Valley, that there in between Megiddo, Har-Mageddon is where Megiddo is there, and then the hills where Nazareth is, and Tabor and Gilboa, that big valley where the thing, if Jesus came from the sky and supernaturally destroys Babylon, if there's fire and from the sword of his mouth, and the idea is that in the distance you could see stuff going on, if it was this, you know, great aerial attack. So they're going to weep over it. And I'm just going to read it, and then we'll be done. And the merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her. Verse 11, no one buys their merchants anymore. Merchandise of gold and silver, precious stones, pearls, fine linen, purple silk, scarlet, every kind of citron wood, and every kind of object of ivory, every object of precious wood, bronze, iron, marble, cinnamon, incense, fragrant oil, frankincense, wine, oil, fine flour, wheat, cattle, sheep, horses, chariots, bodies and souls of men. The fruit of your soul longed for has gone from you, and all the things which are rich and splendid have gone from you, and you shall find them no more at all. The merchants of these things who became rich by her will stand at a distance for fear of her torment, weeping and wailing, saying, alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen, pearls, purple, scarlet, adorned with gold, precious stones, pearls, for in 1 hour such great riches came to nothing. Every shipmaster who sailed by ship, sailors and as many as trade on the sea, stood at a distance and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what is like this great city? They threw dust on their heads. They cried out, weeping and wailing, and saying, alas, alas, the great city on which all the ships of the earth became rich by her wealth. For in 1 hour she is made desolate. Rejoice over her, O heavens, and you holy apostles and prophets, for God has avenged you on her. Then a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and threw it into the sea, saying, Thus the violence of the great city of Babylon shall be thrown down, and shall not be found any more. The sound of harpists, musicians, flutists, trumpeters shall not be heard in you any more. No craftsman of any craft shall be found in you any more, and the sound of the millstone shall not be heard in you any more. The light of the lamp shall not shine on you any more, and the voice of the bridegroom and the bride shall not be heard in you any more. For your merchants were the great men of the earth, and by your sorcery all the nations were deceived. And in her was found the blood of the prophets and saints, and all who were slain on the earth. Once again, this idea of Babylon, the city, the economic system, it's the worldliness, it's the things of this world that lure people away from God. And I think Satan has used two main attractions or detractions from the true worship of Yahweh God through Jesus Christ. And that is false religion. And we saw that dealt with in chapter 17. And then we see the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, this world. And we see things like the sound of harpists, verse 22, entertainment will be gone. Amusement will be gone. By your sorcery in verse 23, that's pharmakia, that's drugs. And we think about this, this is all wrapped up in Babylon. It's literally what Babylon provides, and it's also symbolically represented by Babylon in the sense of entertainment, amusement, drugs, alcohol, and those things that satisfy our flesh. Jesus will put an end to all those things that took us away from him. Many people crave entertainment and amusement. So this will be our closing fun way to apply this to our lives. Leonard Ravenhill once said that entertainment is Satan's, what was it? It is Satan's replacement. I forget the word that goes there. For joy. Entertainment is Satan's replacement or alternative to God's joy. And there's a truth to that. I'm not saying you guys can't ever be entertained by stuff. But what we find is that entertainment is something that keeps us busy for a little while. And once it's over, it's over. There's no real lasting sense. It makes us happy. But God brings us joy. And that's something that lasts and it continues. And joy is not dependent on circumstances. Many of us often crave amusement. But just remembering that muses, to the Greeks, a muse was one of these godly, whatever spiritual beings that would come and they would help the artists and the musicians and all stuff. They would be their muse, something that inspired them to do great things and intellectual things. A muse is something that inspires us to go and do stuff. And then we have the something, and my brain's not working right now. At the beginning, the A, amuse. Ah means none, no, go away, not. Amusement is that which does not inspire us to think. It does not inspire us to grow. It does not inspire us to do. Amusement are things that just get our minds off of all that and just kind of detracts. Is a little bit of fun okay? For sure. But when we seek amusement and entertainment, when we seek to escape from reality, and that's all that drugs do, all that drugs do is distort reality. They give us not real feelings and not real thoughts. And we seek them because it helps us to escape. But that's not what God wants. God wants us to full on just dive into him. And he will give us joy everlasting. And we will give us the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, long suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Those things. You read in Philippians 4:8, the things that we're supposed to meditate on. Good, noble, of good report. All these things. That's what we should really be focusing our time on. And so here's a simple little test you can use and you can walk away with today. Christians ought to be much more regularly throughout the day simply asking God, is this worth my time? God, is this where you want me to be and what you want me to be doing? I'm hoping to watch The Chosen Season 2, Episode 4 tonight. And I have a bit of a peace, at least I do right now, that God's okay with that. I'm not going to have any shame or any worry. But there's a lot of other things that I might be compelled to do that's not worth my time. As Leonard Ravenhill has on his tombstone, are the things you're living for worth Christ dying for? Our time is blood bought. Let's give it to him. God bless you guys. Have an amazing day. Revelation 19. We got to figure out where we're going next. We've only got a few chapters left. Holy moly. So, I will let you guys know. I'm thinking about going to Genesis or maybe First Corinthians, but I've also thought about going to First Corinthians with our church. So I don't think I'm going to do them both. We'll figure that out as we get there. Or back to a gospel at some point too, because I just want to spend time in the gospel because it's always good. So God bless you guys. I'm open to ideas. Shoot them out there. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Do you like my bobbleheads? They're pretty cool. I want to get